John 10:16, he says, "And I have other sheep which are not of this fold, those too I must bring in, and they will listen to my voice, and they will become one flock, one shepherd." So Jesus talks about these other sheep. At that time, Jesus was focused on the Jews and bringing them into the fold, bringing them as part of as the sheep. And so that was the focus at that particular time. But there would be other sheep that would be brought in. The Samaritans, who were looked down on by the Jews, they would be brought into the flock. And then there would be others, the Gentiles. And so these other sheep would come in, and they would all be one flock, and they would treat each other in unity as brothers and sisters. When you have this big flock of sheep, Jesus also likened it to a wheat harvest. In Revelation 14, it shows that the first fruits, they would be taken to heaven. They would go wherever Jesus goes. And so this is in harmony and fulfillment of the law, and how the first fruits were always given to God. So here in this whole spiritual harvest, this spiritual flock of sheep, God gets his first fruits, and they go wherever Jesus goes. So that would be the first resurrection. As Revelation 20 brings out, the number of those who would be wherever Jesus goes is 144,000. So that's God's number. No one can add or subtract to that number. You have to stick to that number. Jesus said in John 6, verse 39 and 40, that he will resurrect them on the last day. So when people die, they don't automatically, if they're going to heaven, they don't automatically go to heaven. They have to wait until the last day, when the appointed time for their resurrection takes place, and then they're brought to heaven. So there's a time of sleep. If we go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 15, it says, "For this is what we tell you by Jehovah's word, that we, the living, who survive to the coming of the Lord, will in no way precede those who have fallen asleep in death. Because the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a commanding call, with an archangel's voice, and with God's trumpet, and those who are dead in union with Christ will rise first." So that's the first resurrection. "And afterward, we, the living, who are surviving, will together with them be caught away in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we will always be with the Lord." So this is 144,000, and they will always be with the Lord. So there's no dying and then going to heaven. There is, you're dead, and then you have to wait till the coming of Christ, and then you're resurrected to heaven. Throughout the first century, when this wheat has been on this earth, as Jesus said in the parable of the wheat and the weeds, throughout all this period of time up to our time, there's been a selection of these ones who would be the first fruits. Now, who does the choosing? Well, we know that James and John, their mother, came to Jesus and asked, well, could he grant them that they sit to be on his left and right in his kingdom? Well, Jesus said, well, that's not my authority to do. That's only God can give that, can give those positions. So really it's up to God to choose those who will be with Jesus wherever he goes. It's God's choosing. It's not a desire that we may have. We may say, well, I want to go, but that has no relevance. Many people today say I'm anointed, as Jesus said they would. Doesn't mean they're anointed. It's up to God where the one goes, wherever he wants you to go. As the Bible shows, God does what he wants to do. So if he wants you to go to heaven, you go to heaven. If you're going to be on earth, you're going to be on earth. It doesn't really matter what your desire is. God chooses wherever you go, that's where you go. When they go to heaven, they're not going there to rest on a cloud and fly around and do what you want to do. That's not how God does it. Look what he did with Adam when he created Adam. What did he do? He put him right to work. That's how God does it. If you're up there in heaven with God and in his presence, you're going to work. You don't go up to be, vacationing or like, wow, I'm just enjoying the life. No, you're going to work. That's how God does it. He puts people to work. And so there will be much work to be done as kings and priests. Now, if you don't go, What are you going to be upset? Well, you better not be, because that selection is not up to you. There is a second resurrection. There's a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous, and that resurrection would be for those who will live on this earth, as Revelation chapter 20 brings out. And so, by means of this kingdom with Jesus and 144,000, people will be able to take advantage of 1,000-year rule, as Revelation 20 brings out, and be able to be brought to perfection, to get back what Adam and Eve lost, to get to the point where death is no more, as Revelation 20 brings out. And so they have the opportunity for everlasting life on earth. You see, no matter where you are, heaven or earth, the reward is still everlasting life, no matter where you spend it. In Luke 22:30, it says that they will rule or judge the 12 tribes of Israel. So here we see another fulfillment of the law, in that Israel is spiritual. It's no longer by the flesh, because the Bible says we know no man by the flesh. So it's spiritual Israel. In other words, God can change your name and your race. He can do whatever he wants to do. You know, he's changed people's names in the past, and that's who they were. And he can change your race just like that. In Galatians 3:7 says, all those who put faith in Jesus, they're considered descendants of Abraham, which makes you part of this spiritual Israel. So you walk around and say, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Hispanic, I'm Asian, whatever. God can change all that. The meal is the meal of the new covenant. God said he would make a new covenant with Israel. We know Israel is spiritual now. It's not based on the flesh. It's based on the spirit. It's based on those who put faith in Jesus. And so spiritual Israel is in that new covenant. And that would include not just those who will go to heaven, but also those who will be subjects of the kingdom, as Jesus said in Luke 22:30. And so because they're invested in the new covenant, and the new covenant is with them, those of spiritual Israel, whether they're to be ruling with Jesus or subjects of the kingdom, they partake of that meal because they're in the new covenant. The meal is just about remembering Jesus. And so whether you have a part in the first resurrection or the second resurrection, faith in Jesus puts you in as part of spiritual Israel, and you are to partake, because partaking is all about remembering Jesus, not about anything else. The resurrection will decide who go to heaven, who will be on the earth. And if you go to heaven, great privilege. If you live on the earth, still great privilege. It's all in God's will and what he wants done